What our crowd platform enables us to do is get those companies access to capital that they desperately need. So when we look at a company, we look for unique technology, ones that move the bar. They change the way medicine is practiced, they change what they can do for patients.
We're developing a new way of accelerating particles, specifically protons, 2/3 the speed of light, to the tumor, to the patient, to treat the tumor non-invasively. Instead of a 200-ton machine, we're talking about something that's 200 kilos. It's huggable.
Just as important as the technology, and maybe even more important, is the quality of their management in order to make sure that we're choosing the right company. There are doctors that are part of our investor group to help us understand whether a particular company is useful for their point of view or not.
What we get from our code, which is very unique, is you have different teams working together with the company for different purposes. There's a deal flow to assist in segmenting the market, into exploring different collaborations, using our crowd network of knowing the right people in the right time.
We see about 400 to 500 companies a year. We will meet with approximately 100. We will then invest in about 4.
We've received marching orders that bringing good technology that's going to make people's lives better is really a priority. We've been very successful financially at investing in those companies.
20% of the crowd portfolio is comprised of medical technology companies. That's 26 companies where we've raised over $52 million, plus with the Cure Digital Health Technology. One of the major issues facing Israeli medical technology companies is the lack of
our crowd network of knowing the right people in the right time.
We see about 400 to 500 companies a year. We will meet with approximately 100. We will then invest in about 4.
We've received marching orders that bringing good technology that's going to make people's lives better is really a priority. We've been very successful financially at investing in those companies.
20% of the crowd portfolio is comprised of medical technology companies. That's 26 companies where we've raised over $52 million, plus with the Cure Digital Health Technology.
Is this on? Okay. I'm not going to go twice and stop in the middle. I will just go.
One of the major issues facing Israeli...
On that note, maybe I will. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's playing here. Is that why? The video is playing on this. Okay. My name is Aaron Katz. I am a lawyer at Greenberg Traurig. Greenberg Traurig is an international law firm. We have 2,000 attorneys with 38 offices around the world. We are the biggest law firm in the United States, and we have an office here in Tel Aviv. We're actually the only large international law firm that has a fully functioning office here in Israel. And my colleague Bob Grossman is in the room. Many of you probably, I'm sure, know Bob. Bob knows everyone. Bob is the chair of our Israel practice. He is based in Miami, but comes to Israel all the time. And the firm really is one firm working around the world, connected with the U.S. and connected here, of course, with our Tel Aviv office. In the MedTech space, it is a huge part of what we do here in Tel Aviv and in Bob's practice and in the Israel practice. We recently were involved as U.S. counsel in a large $150 million financing of a MedTech company. And as well, we are involved in IP and patent portfolios, and really in all corporate governance in all areas of law which affect startups and companies in the medtech sphere. And just briefly before we begin, just some trends which we're seeing, which I'm sure we'll hear about later in these presentations, are things which we're seeing in the medtech sort of disruptive industry. The focus on saving and prolonging lives, on having personalized care, increased speed of treatment, accuracy, simplicity, reliability, and of course reducing costs. And all these companies that we're going to hear from and as the trends which we're seeing throughout the industry are these disruptive companies which are able to focus on these various different areas and providing, of course, cost savings and as well as life savings. As a lawyer, we sometimes forget that there are people out there, doing good and actually, doing tremendous good for the world. And I think it's an exciting area where you see sort of both the savings on the cost side, on the cost side and using the data and using the analytics, and also providing a better good for people. And specifically, some of the groups we'll hear from just in a few minutes are involved in optimizing personalized diabetes treatment, digitally using data to improve safety and reducing costs in hospital stays, genetic test tracking, using artificial intelligence along with medical equipment, and technology for measuring, improving the brain health. And most notably, in addition to having a great product and a great strategy, the companies that we work with, that we continue to work with, and the ones that we see succeed are people that have great management, great strategy, really understanding the market. Of course, we'll, as a plug for us, of not just us, are all good service providers as well, good accountants, good lawyers, and having great investor support, and really having a true vision. And I think the people we'll hear from starting right now are people that are working towards these goals, and I think that we've all seen exciting companies, and will continue to in the coming hours and throughout the conference. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon.
So our next presenter is Eran from DreamEd.
Well, hello everybody. Thank you very much for having me. And I would like to share with you in the 7 minutes plus minus 10 seconds that I have about the DreamEd of DreamEd diabetes, about the story about DreamEd diabetes. Let me start a little bit with my background. 11 years ago, when I graduated from biomedical engineering in Tel Aviv University, I wanted to dedicate my professional life in order to make an impact on the field of healthcare. I was very fortunate to meet Professor Moshe Philip, who is the director of the Diabetes Institute from Schneider Children's Medical Center in Israel. I learned that he's a world leader in the field of diabetes, and he's a truly tech-savvy with regards to how treatment with diabetes is supposed to be. And together we decided to take the hard work and trying to find a way how we can change the treatment of diabetes patients. I'm sure it's a fact that everybody knows, but I think if you think about it on the back of your mind, having diabetes is basically like having a second job. You need to work in order to manage this disease. Any daily activities that you have, eating the great food outside or working from the plenary hall here, sitting and giving a lecture can impact your glucose levels, and you need to make sure that you control that and monitor that in order to make sure you're keeping your health very well. It's something that is very disruptive, it's painful, and it's basically taking out the spontaneous of life. And because of that, I'm sure that nobody is surprised that most of the patients with diabetes, either type 1 or type 2, are missing their targets. And the question is why? Because we have a lot of technological solutions out there. We have sensors, we have pumps, we have connected pens, we have apps. So why can't we make the targets of glucose control? In order to feel that yourself, let me try with a story. Raise your hand. How many here in the crowd remember their first date? First date. Okay, so going on a first date, it looked like a simple story, right? So let's take aside all the hormones and the nervousness from your date. But if you have a diabetes, a date becomes a project. Because instead of paying attention to the date, to what she's dressed, how she talked, and is she interesting, you need to have different questions in your back of your mind. For example, did she notice that I'm not paying attention to her because I'm too worried to look on my iPhone to see my glucose levels right now? Or, for example, did I take into account the workout that I did before the date so I wouldn't faint out in the middle of the date? Or did I injected enough insulin during the date so I wouldn't have some highs afterwards and then I need to go to pee? So all of these questions are in the back of the mind of diabetes patients as a regular person that just don't have it. Now, it's not just a problem of the patients because healthcare providers also have a problem when the availability of all of these mechanisms to measure glucose, instead of getting just 3 to 4 measurements per day, you're getting 288. So you need to analyze all of this data. There's a lot of endocrinologists. So how DreamEd get to solve all of these challenges? Together we decided that we're going to use this data together with algorithms that will help patients and physicians optimize their treatment. One of the things that were very important to us to be originated from the clinic, so we have an excellent team that is coming from the clinic, understanding the needs, and also product people that knows what to do with a digital health solution. Our solution started with one of the algorithms is doing real-time analysis of the glucose. That algorithm is taking data from continuous glucose sensor embedded inside an insulin pump and basically automated insulin delivery, freeing the patient from all of the burden. We licensed that to Medtronic Diabetes 2 years ago, and together we integrated that technology inside Medtronic's insulin pump and continuous glucose sensor. And I know it seems obvious, but that leader feature in the circle is basically our algorithm. So very proud with that. The second one is doing retrospective data analysis. We hooked together with Gluco, who is the leader in the field of diabetes data aggregation, basically has the ability to pull data from all the diabetes devices into one cloud system. And together we are doing a personalized cognitive automation for insulin pump optimization. We have a cloud-to-cloud communication, so every time a patient downloads data to Gluco, that data is being sent to our cloud, being analyzed by our algorithm, and we are providing a precise and accurate and personalized way how to change the treatment of insulin for that specific patient. The first version of that product is going to be launched for physicians, for healthcare providers. It's now under review for the FDA and the CE mark. But the intention later on is to provide that access directly to patient. Now, from our point of view, Advisor is like having a set of different kind of tools that each one of the tools has its own value, but together we're going to provide a whole solution. While current technology is now dedicated for the type 1 diabetes population, we already started projects to look on type 2 because these kind of population is getting much more technological, more sensors. Like in Israel, Abbott Libre sensor was just approved in the basket just 2 weeks ago. And our dedication is to make sure that any patient with diabetes that is controlled by insulin or any healthcare provider that treats patients will have a better way to optimize the treatment and provide something that is more accurate, accessible around the globe. So thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Jonathan from KolGene.
Cool. So I hope you're hearing me without a mic. No? At all? I didn't hate podiums. So I will try to play the game from the podium. So hello, my name is Andrea. I'm genetic counselor from the St. Luke's Hospital. Actually, I'm looking to improve my process of tracking the genetic testing. And today I'm using the Excel. And it's time consuming, and I admit it's not really, I'm not really keeping it up to date. So I'm truly interested to learn what others are using, and please share with me your findings. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob. I'm a genetic certified genetic counselor from a very large hospital, and you know, I'm using FedEx receipts. I'm write the test name, the patient name, and the date the test was drawn, and then I threw them away as soon as the test is completed. Not a high-tech, but it's worked for me. And now for real, my name is Jonathan. I'm the co-founder and CTO of KolGene. And the KolGene, we built a platform that ordering and managing genetic tests. And you know, the talk that I present to you is the perfect description of what happened right now in every single US hospital that managing genetic test sendouts. When we're talking with the clinicians, everyone is describing the hodgepodge of genetic tests. So there's 68,000 different genetic tests. There's more hundreds and hundreds laboratories with the different quality levels, with different pricing tag, with different turnaround times. It's almost insane to manage all these complicated processes. So they're using today the Excel, the sticky notes, the calendar appointments to follow up on with the patients, with the results, et cetera, et cetera. Mess. And here's the technology come for the rescue. Recently, Stanford published the case study where they took the all genetic test orders with a cost of more than $18,000 1800, sorry. It was, as a result, more than 60 different orders like that. And they found out that actually the 30% of these all orders are misorders, meaning they shouldn't be ordered, or any other order with a less price tag should order and to save. And it's translated to, only with these 600 tests, translated to more than $250,000 saved for this hospital, only for the 600 genetic tests. And the opportunity is amazing. As a result of that, with all these fundings and possibilities, we build a platform that streamlines the process of the whole genetic test, or actually all the things happening when ordering genetic tests, starting from the managing the lab, managing the test results, automatic filling for the documents, or recognition of which test should be ordered to prevent the misorders, tracking with the FedEx and DHL on the samples, where they are stuck in the customs, or any follow-up needed to proceed further. What happened with the test results, if they arrived on time or not. Maybe there are some crucial test results that some patient with cancer wait for these results, and nobody really follow up with that. Our platform is very simple. We build it that allow to everyone, from the clinician to technician in the hospital, to track for every single patient case. And more than that, we're a data company, and we provide the useful insights for the hospital, how exactly and what exactly need to be done in order to manage this process much more efficiently. We already launched our platform. Our prediction was for the January alone was like around 40%, so we launched 1.5 months ago. We already exceeded with more than 65 different orders in the US, Canada, and Israel. Of course, we're not alone. There's other solutions. There's another company that's doing the similar thing with a similar vision in mind. Of course, we have a secret source. Our secret source, one of them, there's a lot of them. One of them, we have dozens of laboratories that connected to our platform. We call it Marketplace. And they're competing one with each other to provide the best care for the patients via our platform to the hospital. Our business model is pretty simple. We're a data company that provide a lot of insights for the hospital, for the pharma companies, for the insurance company. We have a SaaS model for the hospital to sell our solution. And of course, there's affiliate fee for every single test that we sell through our platform for each laboratory. And the last question, who we are? Why to trust us, right? So we balance team of the business, genetics, and technology experts from the top companies over the world, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Teva, and we're really eager to change how the healthcare works and to allow the hospitals to provide the better care for their patients. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to welcome onto the stage Asaf from Site Diagnostics.
Hi everybody, my name is Asaf from Site Diagnostics. I'm going to present today our innovation for conducting blood tests. This is our slogan, AI meets blood diagnostic. And let me start for a second by describing a very common scenario. Let's say that you woke up in the morning and for the second consecutive day, you find out that your kid has high fever. Anybody is familiar with that situation? Please raise your hand. Probably everybody, right? No work today, you take him to the doctor, right? The doctor is doing the general medical tests and then order a complete blood count. Complete blood count is the most common blood test today in the world. It's basically a way or measure to evaluate the general condition of a patient. Can you hear me better now? Okay. It's a great way for a doctor to measure kind of the general condition of the patient, whether it has viral infection or anemia or, God forbid, some kind of a cancer, something like that. Just to give you a sense on the magnitude of the market, we speak about something like 4 billion tests per year. On average, everybody here in this room will conduct such a test at least once a year, okay? Going back to our scenario, you take your kid to the doctor, you're getting now the prescription to do complete blood count. If you're lucky enough, it's in the same environment. If not, you get into the car again and you go again to another lab. This is the stage where the nurse is taking the needle, is taking blood from the vein. This is the part where my kids start screaming and I'm bribing them with my iPhone. But let's put it aside for a second. Now, what is happening, you go back home, and in the backstage, the following happening. The blood sample is sent via usually a very complicated and logistical process to a centralized lab. In the centralized lab, they have a very big machines, like the machines that you can see here. These are amazing machines. They have a great throughput, and they give a very accurate results. But they have three big disadvantages. One, they're very big and very costly. The second one, they run on a technology that's called flow cytometry, which means that they involve lots of liquids inside and reagents and stuff like that. Therefore, you need an expert and skilled employee in order to to operate the device. And the last thing, and probably the most obvious, the test, think about the route that the test was undergoing so far, is conducted far away from the patient and usually many hours after that. If you take myself, I came back home, and now I will wait for a few hours in the good scenario and for a few days in the worst scenario to get back the results. I need to contact my doctor, or the doctor will contact me, and now he has a resolution and he will give me maybe a prescription for antibiotics. Okay, this is what we're trying to change. So we came up with a completely different solution, which is based on machine vision and AI. And basically what you see is our solution, our device. We call it Olo. And it's very small on the slide on purpose, because it's a small device. Okay? And we believe that we invented, in a way, the first accurate, and I'll put an emphasis on accurate, point-of-care device for complete blood count tests and other tests as well. Let me tell you how it works. We have three elements in that solution. The first one, we use this relatively simple cartridge on which you only need 2 drops of blood. You mix it with some kind of a very basic mixing solution. You put it in that cartridge. It's a very cheap cartridge. This is the first element, and then you take it to the second element. Second element is the device that you see on the screen. The device contains relatively basic components: a microscope, not a super high-tech kind of a microscope, a basic one, a camera, and various light sources that eventually illuminate the sample. Okay? This is the second element. Now, what is really happening inside the machine is that there is a scanning of the sample, and hundreds, sometimes even thousands of pictures are taken at different kind of focal areas and at different wavelengths. These pictures are being transferred in real time to the third element, which is our artificial intelligence-based software that actually looks at the the pictures and bring back the results of the complete blood count. Okay, this is the soft of the solution. Now, this is how the device looks like. By the way, a small anecdote completely unrelated to this lecture. The device was the design was made by somebody that previously to working with our company was designing, guess what? Italian sports cars. So we believe that it's a very cool and non-traditional medical device, but of course I'm biased. What you see here is, of course, the kit next to it. If I need to summarize for a second the attributes of the solution, it's the following. We have a solution which is very simple, okay? It's a dry hematology. You don't have any running liquids inside, so you don't need any expertise in operating the device, and of course the maintenance is much simpler. It has a footprint of a small A4 page. The entire device, by the way, weighs 7 kg. Okay, that's it. That's the first. Second thing, and probably the most important, we were able to reach a very high accuracy in our results. So our slogan now is that we are providing a lab quality results, but without the lab. Okay, we can give a 5 diff of all the different white blood cells and also blood abnormalities such as reticulocyte, immature granulocyte, and all of those other components that only the big device today can give. And the most important, at least if I go back to my personal story, with the kid, they only need 2 drops of blood from the finger, and you get the results within 9 minutes. So if we'll take again our scenario, you get into the doctor, you're running the test, the doctor already have the results, now he can give you a proper medical treatment, and you get out. You don't need to go to the lab, you don't need to wait for hours for any kind of solution, and that's very nice. We've built our technology for quite a few years. We have an already device for malaria that we commercialized, and we sold almost 500,000 tests so far. And the last thing, we have patents on most components that I've said, and the remaining time that I have, which is very little, I would like to say that we treat it not as a medical device, but as a medical platform. Because right now we have the capability to take blood samples for other problems, such as malaria or other diseases, to train the machine, and then to add more capabilities to the existing device. Thank you very much.
I'd like to welcome on the stage Jordan from MedAware.
Hey everyone, thanks for bearing with us at this hour in the day. Appreciate it. I'm Jordan, I represent MedAware, and what we're doing is we're essentially transforming patient safety by developing machine learning enabled decision support tools that know how to flag out catastrophic errors at the point of care. Now, the company was actually founded on the heels of a tragedy where about 4 years or 5 years back in Israel, a 9-year-old boy died simply because his primary care physician selected the wrong entry in a pull-down menu list on his electronic health record screen. So he meant to prescribe him with Singulair for asthma and clicked on Centrum accidentally, a potent anticoagulant like a warfarin. And a week later, the boy falls off his bicycle and dies of an intracranial hemorrhage, all because of really this typo, right? This wasn't some sort of lapse in knowledge or some sort of poor judgment or some sort of ill will, God forbid. This was just a simple typo. So MedAware's founding team got together and decided that with the data that we have accessible to us and with today's IT systems, that kind of error should never really happen again. And kind of when thinking also through this tragedy, right, like, yes, this is a physician with their patient and there was an error, but everyone makes errors, but I think we can really think about it more as a failure of a system, right? Because on one hand, there's an interaction between the patient and their provider, and there was an error that was made. But the health insurance company, the health plan, also has all relevant data to know that this young child did not need to be on an anticoagulant, right? And the pharmacy benefit management company that's adjudicating that claim also had an opportunity to intervene, and frankly, at the end of the day, the end consumer needs to be empowered with the types of insights in order to basically take better control of their care. And that's exactly how we're developing the company. And when you think of the current solutions that are out there that are kind of in this space, what you have is legacy systems that are, basically rule-based systems. So these are systems that have hundreds of thousands of manually curated rules around drug interaction or dosage checkers or allergy checkers, et cetera, but by definition are only able to identify what they're pre-programmed to look for. So the difficult or impossible to anticipate errors like the one that killed this boy would never be flagged by these solutions. And also, and probably a greater problem is that given the complexity of the rules despite their narrowness, they result in more than a 90% false alarm rate, which leads to such high provider alert fatigue that in more than 95, 96% of the instances, physicians just simply disregard alerts altogether. So MedAware kind of thought about how do we kind of borrow technology from a different industry and bring it here to solve this challenge. So I guess you can think of what we've built as something that's analogous to the way credit card companies deal with fraud, namely kind of outlier detection mechanisms. So we'll take large-scale electronic health records, build patient profiles, and then computational models around every drug to determine who should or should not receive that medication in that scenario and in that geography. And if something were to largely deviate from standard treatment patterns across all of our implementations, we'd flag it as an insight and as a warning at the point of care. We also have the ability to actively follow through all medication that should there be some sort of changing diagnostic result that would render an active medication as harmful, we'd also be able to have eyes on that to help the physician decide then later on, right? So after the fact. So we have this kind of surveillance piece, and we're also, of course, building out our ability to flag out early opioid dependency and early opioid abuse and risk, given the same kind of outlier detection mechanisms and a number of other things to really build a patient safety suite of offerings. A very large addressable market. We'll kind of get into some of the insights as a service platform that we're building, but really, the first phase of what we're doing is how do we deploy in the provider space. We've done a number of retrospective studies. We've looked now at over 1.2 million lives. The most recent was done at Harvard Medical School. We looked at 800,000 patients, and within that cohort identified more than 25,000 patients with life-threatening prescription errors that went undetected by the current gold standard. And those kind of same statistics kind of persist with us as we're seeing ourselves in live settings. Errors that we found, we saw chemotherapy to healthy individuals, this kind of ongoing surveillance, a new low platelet count, and an aspirin wasn't stopped, so rendered inactive med is harmful. We saw Viagra to a little baby, and a fertility medication to an 80-year-old female who, in our estimation, probably wasn't looking to conceive. It just sounded a lot like her osteoporosis medication. And these things seem like, comical, but these are errors that we see daily, right? So, just in just in the last couple of quarters, we've stopped hundreds of potentially catastrophic adverse events by having our system deployed. We've been live for a year now at Sheba Medical Center, a 2,000-bed tertiary hospital. We render roughly 1 warning per department per day, so very seldomly, but with an 80% true positive rate, so on point. And we've basically been able to see that we can prevent a significant amount of adverse drug events by our system, right? And, when thinking kind of through the power and the value of the company, that yes, we have this very strong decision support tool that has been proven both, retrospectively, historically, and also prospectively, but really, we're leveraging insights, because in order to be effective on the prescription error tool, we need to have a significant amount of understanding of how doctors are treating patients in different scenarios. And that understanding becomes part of the MedAware knowledge base. And that knowledge base, based on our deploying in different hospitals and primary care practices and ambulatory centers and different places around the globe, really, that knowledge base becomes something that's quite interesting to a number of different stakeholders across the continuum of care, and eventually, really, to that end consumer, so that mother could potentially intervene on her child, or we know whether or not there's a dangerous situation that we need to be aware of. And I think a lot of the moves now that Apple's making as of late, and Amazon, I think that whole kind of consumer entering and being empowered in healthcare is not as far off as we had once thought. So I think that we're in an interesting position to hopefully capitalize on that with some of our insights and actions that we can maybe drive. Over the last year, we've made some significant progress. I know many of you are longtime investors and spoken to a majority of you. So, we basically have moved our lives analyzed base from about 1.2 million to 5 million lives analyzed through our organic growth, have done some significant partnerships with EMR vendors and a few health systems, and are now deploying and are actually engaging with other stakeholders around the Insights as a Service platform that could be relevant as far as how the ultimate key monetization plan really takes off, and it's looking very good. And in the next 18 months, we'll seek to have about 15 million patient records as part of our base. 10 hospitals and 30 clinics. We're live on Athena Health, so that's a simpler process. Pharma deals in place and the infrastructure to support that and support that growth. Pretty experienced team. Our founder and CEO is Dr. Giddy Stein. He's a practicing physician and a PhD in computational biology. He basically founded the company after hearing the story of this young child, along with Professor Eitan Rupin, who leads the Center for Bioinformatics at the University of Maryland, and Dr. Tuvik Becker, who's a machine learning algorithm expert. And we're a team now of actually 26, mostly algorithm experts, software engineers. We've been part of the R-Crowd family for a long time. We just finished we did a Series A in the end of 2016. And we're looking to really grow the company. And I guess I'll conclude by saying there really is no bigger data than data that saves lives. So thank you for your time.
Okay, now I'd like to welcome our last presenter for the night, Ronen from ElMindA.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk about the brain. So I'll start with my brain. So this is an MRI image of my brain, a structural image of my brain, which can rule out a lot of nasty stuff like stroke and tumors. But also, and I could also restructure it very nicely in a three-dimensional. But it doesn't help me to understand how my brain is actually functioning. But if I look what's happening in my brain right now, and actually in everybody's brain right now, there are 100 billion neurons that are connected with trillion connections, and there are millions of neuronal firing inside our head that are generating our functionality, our ability to see, to hear, to think, to move, to process information. So these are the functions of our brain. There's a huge gap in medicine that the current imaging modalities are not good enough to see the function of our brain, and therefore we need to ask a lot of questions, patients, which become very subjective. Our goal is to look at these neuronal activity that are generating those functions, those 100 billion neurons. But it's very challenging because even though we are very similar, we're also very different. So it took us 10 years to collect a lot of data because we realized that we need to collect a lot of data in order to figure out interpersonal variability. So over the last decade, we collected over 315,000 recordings from individuals' brain with specific brain functions and clinical information to try to figure out how those functions of the brain should look like. What do we do with this data? We take this electrical recording as well as clinical information, and we apply a variety of kind of algorithms that all categorize obviously under artificial intelligence to try to figure out two things, and two things only. One is the ability to directly measure functions from the brain without asking any questions. And the second one is to find specific signatures in our brain that are indicative of something wrong that is going on there. Early detection of a disease progress, like Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer, or early detection of a therapeutic effect of a drug that it takes a long time to see the results of the drug clinically. We have a wide variety of portfolio of patents. Now, how all this come into a product? So we are a software company, but we do have to interface into a hardware device. So we are open to almost any electrophysiological measuring, either electrical or magnetic activity of the brain. We put on top of it our testing device that are actually evoke the brain to process information. We collect the data in a very consistent way, and all of this data uploaded into the cloud. So over the cloud, we apply our algorithms to clean the data from noise, to understand what noise and what signal, to figure out those networks of activity, of neuronal activity that are representing specific functions of our brain, like attention, memory, inhibition, motor function. We call it in short BNA, or brain network activity mapping. So every person that we collect the data adds to our knowledge base, and we allow physicians with a portal to actually see specific functions of the brain of their patients, how they change over time, whether it is due to an antidepressant, a therapeutic effect, or whether it is due to disease progression or recovery from injury. We are commercializing this into a variety of different medical solutions, specific medical solutions. There are many possibilities. We started with 3 medical solutions. I will not talk about everything. Head injury recovery, especially in sports. Healthy aging, for monitor aging population for dementia prevention. But I would like to focus on what we do in depression in the little time I have. And of course, we also have some regulatory approvals for our testing. So what we do in depression is really a paradigm change in clinical practice in mental health. So to start with, I would like to show you what is the traditional approach in treating mental health in general, but depression in particular. After a diagnosis is being made, which is basically based on symptoms and behavior, a physician needs to make a decision what antidepressant or what medication to give the person. How does he decide? It's basically random choice, based on experience, based on what's available in the health basket of the insurance company. So the NIMH did a large study called the STAR-D, and they discovered that actually 52% of the first prescription for depression are failing, are not the right prescriptions. And when do you know that it's failed? It takes at least a month or 2 sometimes to know when the drug has failed. So then it takes a lot of iterations to try to find the right medication. It's a tedious process that at the end of the day, a lot of people, 1/3 of the population, will not respond to any pharmacotherapy. What we do, we actually change this paradigm by bringing precision medicine into mental health. 2 strategies. One, we develop specific biomarkers, signatures in the brain that can predict specific response of specific treatments to the brain. We already have few biomarkers with very high positive and negative predictive values, which are much, much greater than the current trial and error efficacy rates. The second one is, instead of waiting 4 to 8 weeks, we say, why don't you measure the person 2 weeks down the road and see what the drug is doing to the brain? So this is an example of an SNRI before and after the treatment, but also what we realize, if you look at the blue line is the clinical symptoms, which are starting to improve after 4 weeks. The signature in the brain is already available after 2 weeks, so we can see it much, much earlier. And not only we can see it earlier, we can see it with great detail, because we look at the variety of different functions of the brain, so we can look at the person before giving him the drug, see how depressed he is, or how abnormal he is from a variety of different functions of the brain, and what happens after we provide the drug. In depression, we also have 3 very meaningful strategic partnerships for develop better drugs, a better treatment management for depression. 2 pharmaceutical companies, Novartis, one, Takeda, and also with another Israeli company, we have a collaboration on a non-pharmacotherapy treatment development, Brainsway. From an adoption perspective and commercialization perspective, we introduced it into the market with initial sites. This is our first site in the US. And I just want to show you the adoption rate. We introduced it, we installed this first system in March of 2016, where they treated 18 depression patients. In December of 2017, 455 patients. There is reimbursement available in the US paying very nicely to physicians, so the return on investment to the clinic is very, very quick. Our business model is a pay-per-test model, like a software as a service model. Last I checked, there were 7.5 billion brains out there in the world, which represents our target market. And not only the sick people, which are 2 billion people out of those. So our mission is to enable, with our technology, early detection of disease and functional assessment of healthy individuals, so we will be able to see deterioration fast and treat the diseases much earlier to significantly increase or decrease the prevalence of diseases. And our vision is to really bring precision medicine to an area that you wouldn't think that you can actually bring precision medicine, which the benefit, of course, is saving costs while significantly improving the outcome. All of that with a highly profitable business model that we already have validation for. So with that, I will say that we are a digital brain health company, but with a platform that actually works and is in the market today. Thank you.